Hi, I'm Dr. Charlene Walters, author, business and branding mentor, trainer, as well as your host for Launch, a business talk show for anyone who wants to launch their business, their career, or their life. Hi everyone, welcome to Launch. We have a really wonderful guest today, Mark Chiappetta. He is a private investigator, he's an entrepreneur, he's a dad, he's an author, all kinds of great things. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I have many hats in life. I do wear.
You absolutely do. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Oh boy. Well, I am a licensed private detective, private investigator here in the state of Massachusetts. And, it's kind of a funny story. I kind of fell into this profession back in the early 90s when I was struggling out in Hollywood to be the next Tom Cruise. I was a prison guard in Massachusetts.
Interesting.
And one day, I went into the Department of Corrections at 18 years old, working with the criminal insane. I'm 52
Wow.
years old now, so it's a lifetime ago. And I got approached by a casting director to kind of go out to Hollywood and live in a mansion and train to be an actor. And I told my little old Italian father that I'm quitting the prison and I'm going to go out to Hollywood to be the next Tom Cruise. And he just couldn't understand it. So I ended up doing it because, like I tell my youngest son, sometimes in life you do have to chase some dreams responsibly. And went out there, struggled for a few years. And while I was out there, I needed a real job. So I answered an ad for a private investigator, and I've been doing it ever since. So 30 years I've been doing the work. So I guess it was fate. I left the prison, went out to LA, struggled, didn't make it as an actor, and became a PI. And now I'm trying to transition into playing a PI on television instead of being one anymore.
That would be amazing, right?
Right. I'm kind of burnt out.
Yes, I know. I was going to ask you, what's it like being a private investigator? Seems like an interesting entrepreneurial endeavor.
It is. It's different. It's different every day, sort of like the intro with all the hats that I wear. Every case is different. So, my wife's a nurse. She does the same thing every day. It can kind of get tedious. And my job, it's a different case. So it's a different file. And I have 10, 15 files going on, whether it's, missing person case or an unsolved murder or an active murder investigation that's going on or background check or whatever the case may be. So it allows me to, I guess, not go stale when it comes to my profession.
Right.
But, from a private investigator standpoint, I don't think a lot of people understand is especially when it comes to the criminal aspect of the work, we typically work on the side of the defendant on the case. There's usually the prosecutorial side, the prosecution, then there's the defense side. I am a defense investigator when it comes to my criminal caseload. But I've done it all. I've done security all over the world. I've located people. I've done backgrounds on people. It's, there's never a dull day. So it's not like Magnum. I don't have a Ferrari or I don't look like them. I don't have a mustache.
You need one.
Right. I don't even think I can grow one. I struggle. My youngest son can grow facial hair better than me, but.
Well, you definitely need the Ferrari then for
The
sure.
Ferrari? Yeah, I drive a Jeep, believe it or not.
I guess you wouldn't be incognito if you're driving around in a Ferrari though, they'd see you coming.
Yeah, right. I know. Most private eye cars are like Maximas or, Camrys and, your grays and your browns and, maybe a Dodge Caravan. I don't do a lot of surveillance work anymore. So I really don't have a need for a perfect surveillance vehicle. But if I do have a need for it, lots of times I'll drag my wife along, I'll deputize her and we'll take her car instead of my Jeep and we'll work together. So yeah, it's a cool career. It's not one that I expected, but
Sometimes it's like that in life. We just end up where we're meant to be and who knows what's next for you, And I can understand being a little burnt out, but to me it sounds like it would be interesting. What is the craziest case you ever worked on?
Oh God, craziest case?
Yes.
I mean,
Just like you couldn't believe what was coming next.
well, I wrote about this in my book, Happens All the Time, Cheating in the Good Old USA, that I think is on Amazon. I'm not sure. That I once had a client call me. Her husband was coming into town. This was a cheating spouse case. Now, cheating spouse cases, infidelity cases nowadays aren't, that my caseload isn't, the volume's not there like it used to be, just because times have changed.
Okay.
A lot of people are figuring this stuff out on their own.
Interesting.
With text messaging and all the technology we have, it leaves a lot of error for people to get caught. So this was back many years ago when a woman's husband was coming into town and something just didn't smell right. He was coming in on business and she just wanted him watched.
Right.
And I had all the details. I had one of my employees with me. We knew what flight he was getting off. We had pictures. We were waiting at the airport. My agent actually was inside the airport. I was outside in the vehicle waiting in case he hopped a cab and we had to do a mobile surveillance really quick.
Right.
And he was texting me and he's like, Mark, this dude didn't get off the plane. Like, he's not here. I'm looking at the picture I have. He's not here. He did not get off. The flight attendants just came off. They cleaned the cabin. Like, he's not here. I'm like, well, that can't be. He checked in. His wife saw him go on the plane.
Huh.
And then I'm thinking to myself, interesting. So then I remembered in my file that he was supposed to rent a car. So we hustled over to the car rental area at Logan Airport, Hertz or whatever it was. We go inside, we're looking around just in case, human error. He did slip past my agent.
Right.
I look over, there's this really ugly woman kind of staring at me.
Right.
And I just said, I don't know if it was checking me out or something, but I look at this really ugly woman who has an Adam's apple and I'm like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. I go, that is our subject. He changed in the plane into a wig and a dress and came out a woman. So he was living a double life as a female, and his wife had no clue. He was.
She did not see that one coming. That's it.
He didn't see it coming. No, I've done a lot of crazy things. I had a woman that wanted me to hire her. Follow her husband that was running the Boston Marathon. I'm like, how the hell am I going to do that? I'm not going to run the marathon.
You have to train for that one.
So I'm like, all right, well, we need some good photos. We need to know when he typically finishes the race. Now, is he like Kenyan fast? Is he going to be done in the first, 2 minutes? Or is he just like whatever, a regular, average runner? So we got the times. I knew when he'd be finishing. So I had a couple of guys set up at the finish line. And then what I forgot or didn't really pay much attention to is the second you cross the line, and it's kind of chaotic, and it's a lot of people, they put like tinfoil over you, because, when you finish, they wrap you with, someone comes up and wraps you with the tinfoil, and half the people like ready to pass out.
Right.
I'm like, shoot, I can't see his number because we had the number, the running number. I can't see, and you can't tell with the description. So I had to think quick, and I knew, kind of like with Dixie, I knew where his bus was parked or his area that he was going to end up at after the race.
Right.
And we went over there, and lucky, this gentleman was like throwing up on the sidewalk.
Oh, no.
And then I'm texting my client. I'm like, all right, I got eyes on him. She's like, well, I want you to follow him from here. Now this person walks back to a local hotel that he had booked.
Okay.
Snail's pace. Right. No, I'm like, said the lady, no offense, but like, even if this dude was going to screw around, like, it's not happening right after the marathon. And if it is, it's like,
he needs a rest.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So, people call with the craziest things. Right now I'm working on probably one of the most famous murder cases in the country. It's kind of touted, Murder on the Cape. Krista Worthington, the New York fashion writer who was murdered back in the early 2000s. Chris McCowan was the black garbage man that's eventually convicted, 3 life sentences. So I'm the lead investigator on the appellate team. It's been featured on Dateline, 48 Hours. Next month, I'm going to be on Fox Nation on a documentary about it, and that's a fun case to work on. We're trying to get some new exculpatory evidence and put a motion in for a new trial is what we're hoping.
Okay.
So do a lot of that stuff and boring stuff, right? Doesn't it sound boring what I do?
It sounds really interesting to me. I guess my life is super boring. Do you like working on the high profile cases or the everyday cases? Which one do you prefer?
I mean, this case is fun. I do have somewhat of a, I don't know, soft spot for the media. So I like that aspect of it.
Right.
But I like helping out people that are just regular everyday people that that just might need some help. And lots of times if someone calls my office and they're in need and they don't have a lot of money, or they're trying to maybe find a lost sibling or something, I'll just help them out for free, especially if it doesn't take a lot of time or a lot of effort. I try to use that karma in life and try to do some goodness for some people. And it's not like I have superpowers, but
Well, I'm sure you're talented at what you do. And I think, with all of these DNA companies popping up, I'm sure there's a lot more of that kind of investigation going on. Who's my real father? Who are my siblings? I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I was adopted, and that's probably something you didn't read in my bio, but I was adopted my parents adopted me through Catholic Charities. I was 6 weeks old.
Oh, wow.
And I hunted down my biological mother in my early 20s. It was one of my first cases I ever did when I got my license. I'm like, you know what? I was raised to always know I was adopted. My parents made it a positive thing in my life.
Right.
And at the time, there was some medical, which we'll probably get into. There's some medical things in my background with my children. And I just kind of wanted to know where I came from. And I petitioned the court, found out what my name at birth was, found out what my biological mother's name was, and I hunted her down and I found her down in Florida. And cool. Yeah, and this is back like during the early 90s. This is back before like Google searches and all that stuff. Like I actually had to roll up my sleeves and flip through phone books and stuff like that.
Oh my goodness. We had something kind of similar in our family. My mom, the parents that she thought were her parents, it turns out her mom was really her mom, but after she took a DNA test, she did not have the same father as her siblings. So that kind of just threw a wrench into her life. Of course, her parents had already passed away and left her a lot of questions. She's in her 60s by that point when she found this out. So I think that, it's got to be commonplace. And I know it kind of threw us all for a loop, certainly.
Yeah. There's a lot of, I guess, I know whatever shit happens and there's things that go on in life, why people make these decisions, but it's, I had a buddy that same thing, we grew up together. We always thought his father was his father, but his mother always had this like guy friend that was kind of around the family.
Right.
And we were just kids. And then when he was in his 20s, she revealed to him one night that, you know what, your father is not your father, but that guy is your father.
Okay.
And he was like,
shocking, right?
It was shocking because he looked like his father. He didn't look like his father.
No. Yeah, I know. The same. Well, when we look back now at the pictures of my mom, we're like, oh my goodness, she totally does not look like anyone in her family. It's no wonder. Like, they should have known all along. But think of these people back in the day. They had no idea about the technology and the advances that would come along to get them busted, right?
Oh my God. Yeah. And we're using, the advancement in DNA with this case with Chris McCowan, because there was a lot of DNA involved that was sort of inconclusive back in the day, 16, 17 years ago. So there's some new analysis going on with that. And, so it's definitely an interesting time for people, especially, and that always brings up that whole argument when it comes to, death penalty and things of that nature and all that stuff, because unless you see him standing over there with the smoking gun, sometimes you just don't know. So it's, Yeah, I've been doing it 30 years. I trained myself at a young age to be schooled in all areas of the investigative world. But I like to think one of my best strengths is the fact that I try to have empathy. I try to listen to people, we're sort of, which you can appreciate is, I'm a PI, but I'm also a shrink as well without the license. Like you have to counsel people, and I've had some of the most high profile people in my office crying to me, because love is love, and it doesn't matter who you are or how rich you are or how powerful you are or what political office you hold, you get your heart broken, everyone's the same.
The same as everybody else. And you definitely go into that in your book, which has a very cheery title, and you mentioned it earlier.
Oh, it happens all the time.
Yeah, could you tell us more about that book?
Oh God, it's kind of a silly book, but happens all the time. Cheating in the good old USA. It's just stories that I worked on about cheating cases. The names and the identities were changed to protect, the innocent.
The innocent, right? Or
And
not so innocent.
or not so, yeah, or not so innocent, right? The book's very neurotic, kind of like my personality.
Right.
Um, and I try not to, my life outside of my profession is so heavy that, I try to have some fun with what I do as a living, especially like with the cases I work on. Like, I remember one of my buddies giving me a hard time one day, because I think we were out having a drink or dinner or something. And I think I told him that I was like binge watching the Brady Bunch, which I do often. I just started watching Everybody Loves Raymond over again. My wife's like, seriously, or Leave It to Beaver or whatever. Maybe I need to have a psychiatrist take a look into me and see.
And no, I think that's healthy. I binge watch those kind of shows too, just to get a little bit of relaxation sometimes.
Yeah, it's because my daily life is I'm reading grand jury minutes. I'm reading about gangbangers and drugs and pedophilia and all these things that are like, so if I want to go home and,
you don't want to watch, CSI or something for sure.
Right. Or watch something that's mindless, then that's what I'm going to do. So that's kind of where my stories and my book go. They're just kind of fun and entertaining. When I wrote the book, I went on a national book tour with the book, and I had the pleasure of being in studio with Howard Stern. And that was cool. But one of my chapters in the book was called, what was it called? I don't even know what the hell it was called, but it was a chapter about cults and religious organizations and things of that nature. And I spent over 9 years investigating for the Church of Scientology.
I had read that,
which you probably read, and I wrote about that in the book. And Howard really kind of gravitated towards that aspect of my book.
Howard must have been fun to work with, right?
He was cool. Yeah, he was cool. In full disclosure, I'm not a huge Howard Stern fan anymore.
Okay.
I think he's kind of, I guess, to quote Arthur Fonzarelli, he jumped the shark. You know that term, jump the shark?
Yes.
So I think his show is a little bit jump the shark-ish. But back when I was on 10 years ago, I think it was a little cooler and more hip, but it was really fun. He was really nice, very gracious. And it was a dream come true. He's the king of all media. There's nobody that does it better or interviews anyone better than him. So it was fun. It was fun doing that and talking about the stories in my book, and him wanting to hear about Scientology and the things I investigated for them. And I'm very, very careful on what I say about what I did for them,
Right.
just because I try to protect
Everybody.
my own ass from getting sued.
That's important.
Yeah, I had Mari Povich has called me, the Enquirer's called me, everyone under the sun has called me wanting to spill the beans on my cases. But the way I see it is that you have to have some integrity as an investigator, and there is a confidentiality clause. So if I want to just speak kind of like loosely about them and certain basic things that I've done, then I didn't have a problem doing that. But as far as details and names and things like that, I try to shy away from that, because I don't want my other clients that want to hire me potentially thinking I'm going to go out there and just
Yes.
tell all.
I do have a question for you related to your book. So, what do you think of the saying, once a cheater, always a cheater? Do you think that's true or not?
I think so. Yeah. What did I say in the book?
I didn't read your book yet. You have to send me a copy.
Oh, all right. I will send you a copy. I think so. I don't think zebras change their stripes.
Okay.
I think if you are a cheater and you have the ability to do that, then I think you have the ability to do it again.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's hard. Like I don't know. I value my genitalia, and I wouldn't want my wife cutting it off.
Smart man, very smart man.
So yeah, once that's done, I think once someone does that, then I don't, it's really hard to restore a relationship.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and then have any trust. And we all know people out there that have open marriages and do stuff, and they're up front with each other. Actually, that reminds me of a case. I had someone reach out to me that wanted to routinely hire me for backgrounds on this person lived a swinger lifestyle, and they had like rules of engagement with each other within that community of swinging, and that they can only do certain things, and they had to be upfront about everything, and they had to give notice to each party if they were involved in someone. But they took it to the next level, and they wanted background checks done on the potential partners to make sure that there wasn't any, criminal activity or any, financial trouble in their background. And I'm like, whatever, to each his own.
Being careful with it, at least. You got to give them credit for that.
Yeah, and they both knew what they were doing, and it was part of their lifestyle. And if so, the way I look at it is, if they're just hiring me to do a background check, then that's what I'm doing. I'm doing a background check, and whatever you do in your closed doors or your bedroom is what you do in your bedroom.
Yeah. What about for the entrepreneurs and business professionals out there? What are some things, you've obviously ran into a lot of people and probably are a pretty good judge of character. What are some things that they can look for when they're hiring employees so that they get someone who's honest and won't cheat them?
Something to look for when they're hiring.
Is there any common traits or red flags that they should,
I mean, I don't know. The first thing I look for, like I have, which again, we'll probably touch on, but I have my twin sons who are disabled, and they live independently, and I help them run that business. Now, living independently, when you're disabled, you have staff, and when you have staff, you have to look for certain people when it comes to hiring. Me, myself, I don't have I have subcontractors for me, so I don't really hire a lot of people, but like being involved in the hiring process with my kids, right. One of the most important things for me is, we live in a world now where there's no reason to not be able to communicate with someone fairly instantly. Right. And if they don't, then I think that, again, there are exceptions to things, but if they don't, I think that's a red flag. And punctuality is something that, that is one of my pet peeves.
Right.
And, but I'm type A, so.
Me too. So they have to be there on time and ready to go.
15 minutes early, not on time, but at least 15 to 20 minutes early. Where
that's challenging sometimes, but on time for sure.
Yeah, I know. And I'm not, I don't know. I'm not going to stereotype and say, you're a woman. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we have a little more to do,
I have no maintenance. I'm bald. My wife sometimes will be like, we're getting ready to go out, and she'll be like, did you even like wash in the shower? I'm like, I'm bald. I don't have like hair all over my body. It doesn't take very long to clean, but
that is so funny.
But she's conformed to me, and
oh, that's good.
It's funny how people grow into each other, and you grow into the same characteristics.
You definitely do. You kind of work together as a team. Mark and I talked about a lot of interesting things in this episode, so much so that I broke it up into 2 parts. Please be sure to watch the second half of this interview on the next episode of Launch.